awareness of and sensitivities around people who are different from me.
Now, in your organization, how did being a white man affect some of your experiences?
Particularly at the national level, it's been important to be challenged by and to see strong black leadership in this organization. And I mean, that's part of the educational process, learning that my way isn't the only way, and my way isn't the only good way. Those are not always the same thing, but I think that's a real important lesson, and hopefully one that I also take to other organizations, no matter what kind of organization. And I see this in some of the international work that I've done. It's like there's, in addition to that dynamic that you put out around this country, there's also the dynamic of people in the United States assume that what we're doing around gay rights is the best way to be doing things. And there are many models in other countries that are proving that to be wrong. I mean, there are a number of countries that will surprise people here who are going to have full protection for gay people before the United States does. So I guess I, again, try to come from a more holistic perspective that the source of knowledge and solutions and everything do not reside in one place. That we need everybody's participation.
Looking back, what is your happiest recollection from being with your organization?
Happiest recollection.
Was there an event, a moment in the organization that you just look back as a high point in your own personal experiences?
I think it would be the only way I could answer that is really say my first 10 years of involvement, because I really gave 10 years of my life, and then I really withdrew quite a bit, and it was just absolutely wonderful. I don't have anything that I would say is a major regret about that. Certainly there's some things I would do differently now because of the experience. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to develop as a leader. I think the whole thing collectively, I would say my first 10 years are just the best years of my life.
Do you have any sad recollections from looking back?
Yeah, all the losses, because of I don't know what the count is currently. I know it's over 250 to 300 range as far as losses, and they're not all to AIDS. Some are accidental death, murder, gay bashing kind of things, and just, heart attack, whatever. But I've known about 100 of those men, so it's very, has been my biggest challenge. The grief, the cumulative grief, and there's so many losses and other involvements in my life too, so it's pretty overwhelming.
What do you see as the future of the organization?
I'm very pleased with the strategic planning process that's been happening. There were a number of naysayers when we decided to have a convention in Key West 3 years ago, and to try to have a less structured convention and really do some analysis of the first 15 years and start looking ahead. And I credit less effort, particularly with some of that planning and looking back as a way of starting to look for the future. I think the payoff is going to be big, because I see the importance of that in other organizations I'm involved in, and it may be, we may not see the results right away, but if we can stick to it, we will definitely see the results. There's definitely a role for us to play in the national arena, and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, I would say, is the only organization that's really living our mission statement better than we are in some arenas, and yet there's plenty of work to do, and there's no reason we can't continue to be a voice in those on the issues of race and interracial relationships.
Would you care to elaborate on maybe what some of those arenas are?
I think just being present at some of the national gatherings of NGLTF or the Human Rights Campaign, whether it's the Veterans Group or PFLA, any other gay organization, it could be the, they just had a National Square Dancing Convention in Portland. I mean, and Gala choruses, any of those, it's like BWMT members and MAC members who are involved can be using those arenas to educate. And we can do that as individuals, but then it creates opportunities for our leaders to dialogue. I mean, if the convention, those conventions and conferences are coming to a city where we have BWMT, MACT presence, we should use that from a national perspective to dialogue and, I mean, to offer to do workshops or present us at a plenary session to those other organizations. Charles Stewart, our founding black co-chair, really excelled in that area, and went to the Gay Press Association and those kinds of conferences and spoke out on our issues. There are opportunities in the AIDS arena. What we are seeing in the press now around how AIDS is impacting people of color communities, the statistics are getting worse, but the proportions are not significantly different than they were in 1983. And BWMT was one of the organizations that helped sort of force that reporting and really challenged the CDC around reporting by race. And they would have black and Hispanic and other. Well, other wasn't quite good enough.
Right.
If you're serious about education and prevention, then the groups with small percentages may be the most important to focus on. Anyway, we have done some in the past around speaking out on those issues, but those are just opportunities that are still there in a big way.
Is there anything that you would like to add?
One other thing would be, I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us to publish other materials. We've published a lot of our own members' writings, but I mean publish things that are really published as educational tools, sort of beyond the Resisting Racism manual. I'd say that would be a wonderful contribution that this organization could make to the larger movement.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions I had. I don't know, Erwin, if you have anything that you would like to ask.
Tim, in your mind, what does the term German restaurants conjure up?
The Heidelberg restaurant in Denver, where we hosted a board meeting, I think it was in about the spring or something. It was 1986.
And it was to help the chapter too, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, that the selection of locations for board meetings has at times been used strategically as, again, to have more direct interaction with local chapters that might be needing some special attention. That location, by the way, has become several incarnations of gay bars, gay restaurants, etc. It's not a gay anything anymore, but a lot of people still go there.
Do you think that the way the National Association handled our losses about AIDS, the memorial services, the task force, was a model perhaps for how other gay organizations were handling losses?
Yes, I think so. I remember at the first memorial service in Los Angeles in '85, and Del Pascavas from Milwaukee was one of the key organizers of that, and he was killed a week later, anti-gay violence. But I think that was a real contribution. I think it's created opportunities for us to grieve in a supportive environment, and I still find that's a need out in the larger gay community. I'd say that the services here are one of the few opportunities that I feel safe.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Should I say anything else?
Here,
Oh, okay.
on location in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay. Well, that concludes the first of our archival interviews. Thank you.
This was so
Hi, I'm Regis DeAngelini with the... I messed up. Stop.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Regis DeAngelini with the Organizational History Task Force of the National Association of Black and White Men Together, and we're about to start our second interview with Dr. John Bush of the Boston chapter. And we're also here with Erwin Rothenberg, who will be asking some questions as well. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. How did you first hear about the national organization?
Oh, it was through a friend of mine who at that time lived, I think, in Philadelphia, and he had seen it in the paper, The Advocate, I think. And he knew that I was interested in associations with white men. And he said maybe I should look into it. So I did contact San Francisco, and consequently we got together in Boston.
Were you living in Boston?
No, I was living in Westport, Massachusetts, but we did organize in Boston on Union Street, as I recall. Now, how we got together to do that, I guess there were 2 or 3 people who knew each other. I imagine that's the way it happened. It was in June 10, 1980, and the first meeting that we had, there were 17 people there in Boston. And so that's how we got started at that time. And so that answers it.
What was that first meeting like for you?
It was very interesting because most of the people did not know each other. And it was a social with wine and cheese, and the idea was, you know, what are we here for? And that argument started, is this going to be social or political? And so it was very friendly, but there was a little tension. But the tension developed more and more as we met, because we met every 2 weeks, getting this thing together at different people's homes. And that's when the social versus political argument really just blossomed, and there were a lot of antagonisms.
Okay. Why did you decide to join the organization? What was it that interested you the most?
Well, I didn't have a companion at that time, and I thought maybe I would find one in this group, that, you know, through the social aspect. I was more interested in racism in the gay community in Boston, and I thought this organization would do something to confront it. And early on, we did do some things. But that's, you know, basically why I joined, but I didn't find anybody, never did, in the group in 18 years. So those people who said, oh, it's a fuck club, or you can find this or that, you know, just didn't prove to be the case for me.
Now, did you eventually move to Boston? Or?
I never moved
Okay.
to Boston. I have never lived there. I always commuted to
Okay.
Boston, and I lived about an hour and 15 minutes from Boston.
Okay.
And so, no, I didn't live there.
Have you always been a member of the Boston chapter? Or have you been
Always.
a member? Okay.
And I'm the only member left who attends from that first 17 that met in June of 1980. There are a couple people still in Boston who once in a while they will come to a function, but a lot of those people died too. They're gone.
Okay. What projects have you been involved in the organization over the years?
Recently, projects in this organization, well, I don't know if you'd call editing the journal a project or not, but I did that for 2 or 3 years. I really liked that very much too. No problem.
What journal was that?
Oh, that was the, well, once a year we did a journal, the writings of men in the NA, the MACTs, and all those kinds of things, and published them. And I had done the first one, I think back in 1982 or 3. It was called Reflections. And I had collected writings from the various groups, and I sold it for $7, as I recall. I still have some of those copies left. And then after that, somebody in Louisville took an interest and decided that we should do this journal. And his name escapes me, but I see his face. And so he did it for a while, then he quit. And then I took it back. But in the organization itself, both in Boston and the National, I've done everything. I've been co-chair, I was treasurer, I was secretary in Boston. I did a bar study in Boston, which we published the results of the bar study. We did an anti-racism project in Boston. The early days, it was very politically active, and we did a lot of things which you don't see today.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the bar project?
Yeah, we went, what we did, we had members of our group. I was a project director, and we published this Boston bar study too. I think we published that in the early 80s. We went to every bar in Boston. We had a questionnaire. Some of the questions we asked the bar owners, and some we answered by observation, to find out if they were receptive to people of color in their bars. Not only that, but who worked there, who was the bartender, who was the bouncer, and all those kinds of things. And we found out that the bartender who makes the most money, there was only at that time one black one. All the bartenders tended to be white. And the bouncers tended to be either big black guys or big white guys, you know. And as a result of, so then we did, I think there were 17 bars at that time. And so then we wrote a review of each one of them in the book. And then we gave a copy of the bar study to the bar owners, so that they could see how they stacked up against everybody else. And some of them were much more open to receive people of various cultures than were others. And I would assume that it did some good, but then, you know, who knows? After a while, I lost interest in bars and didn't go. But that was necessary at that time because there were so many reports of racism in bars. But that was also true in New York. And the New York chapter, which was very, very vigilant, shut down some bars. They were really very, very vigilant.
Okay. How have you seen the organization change over the years? You said it was very political in the beginning. Do you still feel it's very political?
No, I don't. I think I was talking to several people about that, and I think the organization has become much more conservative. I see a lot of activity going on, but I don't see direct confrontations with racist organizations and institutions in the society. The organization never caught on like I thought it was going to do. You know, here you have the whole United States, and you have one group of black and white men together who you would think would confront these things. But see, I don't think it was ever really resolved within the organization, because when you talk about race relations in this group, there's a lot of tension and hard feeling and falling away, and people get very, very upset about that. And so my feeling was, since it was not resolved in the group, it was kind of impossible to resolve it exteriorly. Now, John Pugh was very much interested in that, and I know he left money to do that. The Anti-Discrimination project. But see, that project, even though it's still ongoing, I don't see that project as confronting, you know. And I learned a lesson, because I thought if you were gay and you were white, although you were gay, you belonged to the majority of society. And I thought within the gay community, white gay men who were political could act and make a change. And I thought those people would be members of Black and White Men Together, but that did not occur. I see the organization now as basically kind of friendship club that meets yearly. People enjoy each other's company, they like to see each other. But in the interim, there isn't much that's happening to change the social configuration in the United States, to confront racism in the various cities. And I see that in Boston, where I'm still a member. We have meetings regularly, and we have people come in and talk. Political figures, anti-racist people, and we listen to them and whatnot, but we don't do anything. We don't go and do a bar study. We don't do things like that. And so, other than being here, we're not really recognizable in the larger society. I pointed this out yesterday in the USA Today. There was this large one-page ad favoring this man and this woman, his daughter, were talking about being sympathetic toward homosexuals. And then they listed 13 organizations down there who had sponsored this ad. And the National Black Gay and Leadership Forum was there, and Parents and Friends of Gays, etc., etc. And I says, oh, National Association of Black and White Men Together will be here. They weren't there. And this is a national organization. We should have been there. So I asked somebody where we contacted. They said they didn't know. See, and this is so frustrating, because if we propose to be, and we have this wonderful slogan of who we are and statement of purpose, but we're just not there. So when I said something to one of the board members about it yesterday, he said, oh, well, even if they had asked us, we couldn't afford it. And I thought, my God, you know, you have all these gay men, white and black. And that's another study I did. I did a profile on the membership, and we published that. Because, see, gay men have more disposable income than do heterosexual men who have children in the same age category. We have money, but we don't want to spend it for these kinds of things. It's absolutely frustrating. And yesterday when I sat in on the morning meeting, and the young man from Tampa spoke about they just had a few members and they couldn't afford to pay more dues and all that. I've heard that ever since we started. You know, and to me it's just bull. We don't want to put the money there. And see, it works like yesterday. Nice time. He said, now I don't want to encourage you people to drink, but we have to sell so much in order to get this at such and such a price. So everybody obliges. They drink at the lovely dinner. They drink at the pool and everything. And those drinks aren't cheap. So there's no commitment. There's no gut commitment to our statement of purpose. And that's the trouble with the organization. It's simply, to me, it's just here. And I've been with it so long that I have become an observer. I really don't, even at this stage of my life, I don't do some of the things that I can do, because I'm so committed to anti-racism activities that I can't half-step. I can't deal with that. And currently I write for a newspaper that has a circulation of about 100,000 in New Bedford, Massachusetts, the Standard Time, and all my articles are anti-racism articles. And I figured I can make a contribution to the larger community. I can talk to heterosexuals, I can talk to homosexuals, I can talk to everybody in these articles, and that's what I do. And I'm very passionate about this. I asked a couple people yesterday, I says, where do you think we're going? How long do you think we're going to be here? And they said, well, we're not going to go away, but because people are so dedicated to it, they won't let it go away. But at the same time, you have to question why you're here if you're not living up to your statement of purpose.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the study that you conducted that you referred to?
Which one?
That was the one, I believe it was the most recent one you just referred to.
Oh, I did a study on
the membership.
Yeah, the black and the white male in the organization. I've lost track of dates. It was in the 80s, and I did about a 10% sample of the membership at that time. At that time, we had about 1,200 members, and this was to find out about their educational background. And their marital status, their income, their residence, their lifestyle, and all of this. And I found out in that study that, of course, it was the case that white gay men made more money than black gay men, which equates with the larger society. And but most of the members of the organization at that time tended to be what you would call middle class. There were very few members who would need aid in order to attend the convention. And indeed that was a problem, because the working class or the underclass, or how you want to define these people, did not feel comfortable in this middle class white and black organization. And even though at that time we did reach out to men of color, because we had we had a fair share of Hispanics, some Asian, and people of different cultures, that study did point out that most of the members were black or white. And the interesting thing about the study that I found is that most of the members had fairly good incomes, which would allow them to contribute to causes of anti-racism, to work, to make sure that the treasury of the organization was indeed solid and sound and whatnot. But there wasn't such a commitment, I noticed after the study, and people began to die. A lot of these people who died, they had estates, but very few of them left money to the organization. And those who did leave, they left the money for the AIDS. That's quite all right. But I mean, people who just ordinarily died and could have left $5,000 or $10,000 out of their estate to the organization did not do it. And so anyway, most chapters got a copy of this report it was called the BWMT man, profile of who he was and everything. And I would just say that it tends to be the same today as far as membership is concerned. Those people who can afford to come and stay in hotels and pay $80 or $90 a day for a room. And there's a couple other things that are very interesting here, which I see a demise coming for this group, is we do not recruit younger people to take over where we live. I look at it, and I call it the graying of BWMT. You don't get, when I come to the conventions, you don't see a lot of new, younger faces coming. There are a few, but no. Now, even if you did, there would be a problem. Because if you have younger, more athletic, handsome men coming in, the problem